Hello, this is Jan from the Fuzzy Duckling, bringing you number 9 in our Learning to Draw series. I was actually going to do our next project, which is a really cute and fun little project, but while I was doing it, I ran into a problem, which I have occasionally run into in the past, that I have a feeling you may be running into about this time in your art career. Now, a lot of times, especially if you are downloading things from the Fuzzy Duckling to work on, you're downloading them and printing them on your printer that goes with your computer. And you don't have much choice about the way that ink will react with your art supplies, such as markers and watercolors, when you go over the top of your ink. But with these projects that we're doing in your Learning to Draw series, you will be drawing these projects yourself. You're not going to be downloading them and using your printer and using the ink that your printer uses. So you will be using your own black pens to ink with. And you need to find out which ones of your black pens will do the job without smearing. And that's what I found as I was doing the next project we're going to do. I was putting some watercolor on this and it smeared my ink. Well, in our next lesson, I'll show you what it did. So I decided maybe right now, this lesson is the time for you, and I too, to figure out which of our black ink pens are the best ones to use with our artwork so we don't ruin our pictures. So, as you can see, I have all kinds of pens laid out here. These are the ones I have in my art supplies or in my office supplies. So I would suggest that you go on a hunt and find all of your black pens that you might use in your art or in your office supplies, because surprisingly, some of the pens that you find in office supplies work well too. And so then what I'm going to do on each one of these is I'm going to write a word. I'm just going to write the word hi. And then I'm going to take my watercolors and I'm going to brush over it and see what it does. Will it smear? Will it make a mess? Or does my black ink stay nice and firm and bold? So, let's start out with this. I'm going to move these lower pens down a little bit. What I've done is made a chart, and I would suggest you do the same. Find you a good sized piece of paper, depending on how many pens you have that you need to try. And along here, I have written the name of each pen, so I can find out which ones work and which ones I need to go buy more of. And I started out with good old Sharpie, our fine point black Sharpie. This is one of my go-to pens. And I'm just going to write hi. What you do here is not important. You can just make a scribble as far as that goes. All we're trying to do is find out what happens when we put wet art supplies like markers and watercolors over the top. My next pen was also a Sharpie, but this is an ultra fine point. And you can see the difference here. The difference. Now, remember, when you're using these pens like this that have caps, as soon as you're done, recap them. Your pens will last a lot longer as long as they have their little hats on at all times, except when you're using them. And then here is a Bic Market. Now, all these pens, with the exception of a couple, which I'll tell you about down here, you can go to most any store, like your Walmarts or your Targets, any place that sells office supplies, and get these. But I do have a couple that you might have to order online. This is a Sakura Jelly Roll. Now, this you may have to order. Some stores carry them and some don't. See how fine of a point that is. This is an 06. These are made in Japan. And then here is a Staedtler Tri-Plus Fine Liner. I use this a lot. I really like it. But it got me in trouble the other day when I did one of my projects with it and used watercolors. But we'll see what happens. Sometimes a pen that doesn't seem to work, if you give it a little bit of time to dry before you watercolor over it, really helps. Okay, this is an Ink Elements. This says it's a metallic gel pen. So this would be about like probably any black gel pen would do. I didn't realize that's more of a silver than a black, but it'll still do for our test. And then this is one that you will find in your office supplies. This is a Precise V7 Pilot pen. And these are the kind you usually just use at the office or a school. But who knows? Maybe it would be a great art pen. You don't know till you try. Now, the next two pens, you probably won't find these at your Walmart or your Target. You may find them at an office store, but most likely you'll have to go to some place like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or order them online. These are regular art pens, and they're archival ink. And let's see, does it say what else? Yeah, this one's made in Japan. These are fantastic pens, but they're a little pricey. And if you do a lot of work, you'll go through them quickly. And what frustrates me in all of our art projects that we do on my site, I like you to be able to go locally and find your supplies and not have to hunt all over the place to find what you need. But I want you to see the difference, because if you stay in art, these are probably some pens you will eventually want to get. Now this is called Micron. Well, take that back. This is not the one they call Micron. This is called Pigma brush. It has a little brush tip on the end. It makes a wide mark. But it's really neat to use. Now this is by the same people, but they call this one Micron. Pigma Micron 05. Now I've used this one until a lot of it's gone. There we go. That'll be enough for our test. And then we have one more thing we're going to test, and that is your everyday pencil. This is one I used to sketch with. Who knows? Maybe we don't need to ink everything we do. There we go. All right, I have all of these down. So now we're going to go in and we're going to use watercolor and see how it reacts with this black ink. And I'm going to use yellow because this is one of them that invariably for me will run my picture if I try to use yellow over black pen. But you know what? I love yellow. It's such a cheerful color. I want to be able to use yellow anytime I want. So here we go. I'm going to go right over that Sharpie. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Not too bad. All right, we're just going to go right down the line. I'm going to go over my ultra fine Sharpie. It did well too. No smearing. Let's try Bic. It seemed to work too. Okay, my Sakura Jelly Roll. Well, it's looking like more pens work than don't work. Now, my Staedtler the other day did smear. Watch it there. Look at that. Do you see all that smearing? Let me put this up and let you see it close. Do you see the smear lines there? And the more I try to paint around it, the more it smears. And that will just destroy a picture. So even though that's a wonderful pen, and if you're using colored pencils or crayons, go for it. But if you want to use watercolors, stay away from it. Now, in fact, that was so bad, I need to clean my brush off a little bit. Okay, get this back up here, and let's try this bottom row. Let's see how all of these are going to do. Okay, this is my Elements from Ink Elements. Not terrible. But if you're close to it, you would see that there's a little bit of smearing going on. So I wouldn't recommend that one. Pilot Precise. Oh dear, it smears terribly. Can you see that? Let me lift it up again just in case. Do you see the smear there? Don't use a Pilot then for watercolors. Need to clean my brush again. When you do these, have water and paper towels handy to clean your brush. All right, let's try the Pigma brush. In fact, I think I need to get a little more water in my watercolor paints. All right. Pigma. Fantastic. It works. And it should, since it's an art brush. Let's go for the other Pigma pen. Hey, it did fine too. Now let's see what our pencil lead does. Look at that. Pencil lead does not do half bad. Now let me move these up here again, let you see them close. Your Sharpie Fine did great. My Sharpie Ultra did fine. Bic even didn't do too bad. It looks like it may have brushed away a little color, but it didn't smear. The Sakura Jelly Roll didn't do too bad. But the Staedtler Tri-Plus, don't try that one. Ink Elements, now you can't see too much. You might get by with it. It's not too terrible. Let me get over here. But it's not as nice as the others. Your Pilot Precise. They meant it when they said it was for office work. It wasn't for coloring over with paint or markers. Pigma Brush, great. Pigma Micron, great. And you know what's funny is your pencil. Now, I would not recommend using a charcoal pencil. Maybe sometime we'll have to do a pencil test and see how all the pencils react. But you can use your regular pencil lead and have no fear of it smearing. So, what we've come up with on this test is, hey, go for your Sharpies. Go for your Bic. Let me look here. And of course your Pigmas. But unless you're into serious art, you probably don't have those yet. And your pencil lead. So let me write this so you can see this in big letters. Let me get my Sharpie here. So go for Sharpies. And let's turn it over. Go for Bic. And go for your pencil. Those are your cheapest alternatives that seem to work. And then when you get a little deeper in your art, you could invest in these Micron Pigma pencils. I shouldn't say pencil because these are pen. Now there's lots of other pens and markers out there, especially in the art world. There's some wonderful ones. But most of those that I'm not talking about, well, they're rather expensive. And if you're just starting out or you're not professional, you probably don't need to invest in those, especially at this point in your art career. Someday when you become a professional, you'll know all about them because you'll find out how wonderful they are, and you will have the money to afford to buy them, hopefully, and you'll have a good reason. But the main difference in a lot of these is this type of thing. You find out which ones work with what you're using. Now, if you're just using colored pencils, any of these pens will work. But if you're using a nice wet marker or watercolors or other types of paint, you want to be sure they won't smear. So, in fact, let me give you a little glimpse into our next lesson. We're going to draw downtown with squares and rectangles. And I tried to get rid of my little bloopers with smearing. But if you can see closely, kind of darkened it. I have smears here and I have smears here. I incorporated the smears into my picture because this is old brick. So I thought maybe the smears wouldn't matter. And I have smears up here. So if this was a picture I was going to hang, I would be very disappointed in all the smears I have. And I had to be very, very careful and not go over any lines with my markers or my watercolors. Oh, and here's terrible smears here that I tried to get rid of. So that is going to be our next project, drawing downtown. But for now, try this one. Dig out all your pens and be sure you have a good pen before you do this next project, and then you won't ruin it like I did. So until then, I'm going to say bye for now and have a good time on your pen hunt.